You need to acknowledge the great variety of family situations that can offer a certain stability, but de facto, in other words, cohabiting, or same-sex unions, for example, may not simply be equated with marriage. That's what he said, for what it's worth.
What does that mean?
All right, and then there's potentially some controversial paragraph on gender ideology, on gender difference. He says, today we sometimes deny the difference in reciprocity in the nature of a man and woman, and envisage a society without sexual differences. Not quite sure. Thereby limiting the anthropological basis of the family. Well, that's what he says. Emotional intimacy radically separated, personal identity radically separated from the biological differences between male and female. Human identity becomes the choice of the individual, which can change over time. Biological sex and the sociocultural role of sex and gender can be distinguished but not separated. And then the technological revolution in the field of human procreation has introduced the ability to manipulate the reproductive act and make it independent of the sexual relationship. So that's going back to the in vitro thing. So you can, certainly I just attended a lecture a few weeks ago at Xavier, presentation by several transgender people, and it was very, very moving because you actually sit back and listen to their experience and what their own understanding, what their own experience of their own identity is, and you have to begin to qualify what the received wisdom. This was my experience. So I think we need to do more of exactly what Pope Francis is recommending, actually, in the previous chapters. Start listening to people's real situations, and be open to the Spirit. The Church may not want to change, what it's saying here, or may not wind up changing that, but we do need to listen first. That's true for gay people. It's true for women. It's true for whatever. We do need to listen to their real experience first, and then not just come with preconceived conclusions. Those are some of the rules of dialogue, that have been enunciated. We have to come always not just with our positions, but with our willingness to hear and to change. At least a willingness to. Maybe we won't. But the willingness, we have to listen to where other people are coming from. And the Church needs to do more of that in every sphere, but particularly in these issues. So that's my 2 cents. But I'm really just applying, the norms that Pope Francis is asking us to, in other words, to listen to real people in real situations and see what we come up with. He says we shouldn't be trying to replace the Creator. We're creatures and not omnipotent. Creation is prior to us. It must be received as a gift. Yes, but what is creation? It goes just beyond the visible. It goes into the deepest of human experience and a person's experiences themselves. So, yes, but what does that actually mean, respect to creation? For a long time, we said, oh, well, it's, being gay is unnatural. And then we finally find, well, it's all over the animal kingdom. And people experience themselves as that. So finally the Church says, well, I guess we have to welcome gay people and accept them as they are, and accept that it's not a changeable thing, it's not a choice. The Church does say that, does admit that. But it had to start to listen first. It had to actually look and see what's out there and hear what people have to say. So that process has to continue in many, many areas. So, once again, my 2 cents.
Plenitum Blessings, everyone. You just watched part of a talk given recently by a priest in the Archdiocese of New York. First, I want to state that the Church has been abundantly clear that not only are homosexual acts disordered, but that the inclination, meaning the orientation itself, is disordered. And as unpastoral as that might sound, it's the truth. And it's been repeated over and over again. Therefore, if you want to go down the path that says that homosexuality is not a choice, that homosexuality is not something that can be changed, therefore you have to come to the conclusion that people are born homosexual. Now this is contradictory, because why would God create someone who is intrinsically disordered? It just doesn't make any sense. And why would God make somebody inclined towards a certain moral evil that the Church has talked about? That again doesn't make any sense. Also, the Church warns about getting into culpability, where we talk about whether somebody is culpable for their sins. And when you get into, like what this priest does, about where you don't have a choice, you start going down that rabbit hole, and then you have to admit to yourself that I am not culpable. Where I am not culpable because I partake in homosexual acts, because it's the way I was born. And that's where you end up going, in his line of, and then you just can't find any logic in the implications of his beliefs, because they just don't go anywhere. They just keep spinning in a circle. One other thing. I saw researching on the internet where I was looking for something about Catholicism and choice homosexuality. There's an often repeated quote that I kept seeing that talked about where the Catholic Church believes that homosexuality is not a choice. And I looked for the origin of this quote, and it went back to Wikipedia. And the Wikipedia source was from Dignity USA, which is a pro-gay advocacy group that has been repeatedly condemned by not only bishops in the United States, but by the Vatican itself. I just focused on this one section where he talked about homosexuality, and I think it's very, very telling in terms of what's going on in the Church right now, because especially in the United States, there's a disconnect between what the Church talks about on paper, what it says officially, let's say in the Catechism or in Vatican documents, encyclicals, letters, whatever, which is very solid and very consistent on the homosexual issue. And the disconnect I'm talking is between that and what you get on the parish level, or in what they say, pastorally. It's quite different. I can tell you, I experienced that firsthand, where I got out of gay, very ignorant. I had been, as a gay man, I had been a spiritual person, not religious. Didn't know anything really about Catholicism or would have taught about this issue or any other. And I picked up the Catechism and saw the word disorder and all that stuff that, a lot of people howl about, that say, on both sides, it's, you can't use these words, it's unpastoral, blah, blah. I found it very liberating and very clear and very precise. And it really confirmed what I had already thought. When I went to various priests, they told me something quite different. You're born gay. There's nothing you can do about it. You need to make the best of it. Go back to gay, change perhaps what you're doing, be a little safe. Which clearly went against the catechism. But for whatever reason, I don't want to get in their personal motives, they felt that this is what they needed to do, whether they were being compassionate or charitable to people. I don't know. This priest is, I think, quite effective here in being deceptive. He's mixing truth and lies. First of all, he's saying, homosexuality is not a choice. The church teaches this. Homosexuality is not changeable. The church teaches this. Not really. The church on the origins of homosexuality has, like science, psychology, whatever, has been inconclusive. And it says in the catechism, it says a psychological genesis is still unknown. But it's interesting that the church uses the word psychological genesis. It doesn't say genetic. It doesn't say it's inborn. It doesn't say you're born this way. It says there's a psychological genesis, which I think in and of itself is very telling. The church about whether it's changeable has really said nothing. I couldn't find anything there. I don't know where he's getting that. It's very hypocritical of him because he talks about, the church needs to listen to the experience, needs to listen to people's experiences. What about the experience? But I think he's mainly talking about where he talked about needs to listen to transgender people, needs to listen to homosexuals who are actively gay. What about the experiences of the thousands of men and women who have left gay, me included, and not necessarily have changed their orientation, but have left gay and are no longer gay? What about our experiences? Well, I don't think he wants to hear us, because I think he clearly has an agenda here. And I found his self-righteousness very offensive, where he's saying it's unchangeable. And it's really, when you throw that stuff out there, and I've tried to make this point many times, this is not just theory. I think a lot of people in the church think, this is just theoretical. I can just, we can discourse, we can dialogue. No, there's more to it. Because, when I was in the gay life, and I was in it in the height of the AIDS crisis in the late 80s and the early 90s. And there were times where I was thinking about getting out of gay, but, I was told, this is the way you are. This is the way you're born. You got to make the best of it. Where else are you going to go? So a lot, and me included, a lot of us did stay. And I would say most of us. And a lot of us died because of that. So it's not just theory. So you have to be very careful when you're saying things like this, because like he is saying, because you're locking people into the orientation to where they feel like they have no control over anything. And that's sad. And I think that's a very, very wrong thing to do. And especially coming from a Catholic priest, because automatically I think there's a certain weight there, and a certain authority there, even though what they are saying, I think, is at best, I would say, overly benign, and I think at worst is evil, because it's just bending things. It's just bending the truth. God bless you all. Bye-bye.